Hello, my name's Ron Jones, and this is going to be my first ever virtual presentation. Let me start my timer. And welcome to the fall or annual HRA conference. My talk is on a rad tech burnout. I am a rad tech. I'm a certified or licensed radiographer and CT technologist. Excuse me. I'm going to try to relax while I do this because I feel like I'm talking to myself here. So anyway, I'm working on my doctorate in education and healthcare leadership. I've been in the field for over 20 years, so I know a thing or two about radiology. This is my fourth annual conference to speak at for the AHRA, and I'm always delighted and grateful to be able to come here and do this. I blog on the website, theradiologictechnologist.com, and last year I noticed a lot of hype about burnout. It was being written about for all kinds of professions, and I started to research rad tech burnout. I know it's something I've known always existed, but I started to do scholarly research on it, and so I've written a blog post on my blog that's about 9,000 words or so, but it's titled Rad Tech Burnout Signs, Symptoms, and Cures. And what I did was I looked up, researched about 13 different methods that cause burnout, things that cause burnout among rad techs. And then I tried to list a couple of remedies or cures for them, if you will. And the original article was written really for the technologists. But I'm trying to convert it now for administrators such as yourself. And so at any time during or after this talk, you can reference this article at theradiologictechnologist.com. So without further ado, let's see if we can make this work. So what's going on in the current landscape? Burnout's quickly becoming an epidemic, although epidemic is being bantered about quite a bit these days with COVID. But as a radiology administrator, I get to keep my finger on the pulse of several radiology departments throughout the hospital system. And as a system delegate, I got to travel the country and meet with other imaging directors and exchange stories about current events going on in our field. What I noticed was a disturbing trend gearing up, and it has the formula to be extremely disruptive to healthcare as a whole. An alarming number of radiologists have been experiencing burnout in the last few years. As of 2018, radiology is the 7th highest physician specialty where burnouts are occurring, and that's a reference quote. It's reported that up to 45% of radiologists are feeling burned out. That's another article that I'm citing. This is in stark contrast to the 20th ranking on the burnout list in 2017. And I can assure you, if the rads are burning out, you can be sure the techs are right behind them. So it's already known through scientific studies that healthcare workers burn out in their jobs at a higher rate than other sectors due to the emotionally taxing interactions between healthcare workers and patients. And an overly stressed radiographer is indicative of an overly stressed radiology department as a whole. Now, pairing this with our coming baby boomer retirement influx of enormous proportions, having an unprecedented impact, and you have a recipe for disaster. So that's why I decided to probe a little deeper and do some research on what's causing employees to burn out. And I also offer some stress reduction techniques and methods for reversing the burnout. So currently we know that there's COVID-19 out there, the boomers are retiring. The rad tech schools don't seem to be putting out as many as they could. And a lot of MBA administrators have this mantra of let's do more with less. So let's take a moment to just describe and discuss what is burnout. Burnout, as I've got on the screen to my left, is a combination of emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion caused by a demanding job that reaches an unmanageable level. Burnout is inevitable in any type of work, but those in the medical field face a double threat. Working long hours and doing night shifts are just a few of the reasons that lead to radiologic technologist burnout. But burnout doesn't only affect the radiographer's job or their relationships and their health, but it can also adversely affect the patient as well as the organization as a whole. So, what can lead to a radiologic technologist burnout? You'll see on the screen I've listed 13 different causes, and I'll tell you I've got a little bit of insider knowledge because, and I mentioned this last year in my talk, there is kind of an underground underbelly, if you will, of rad techs out there in a forum, several forums actually on Facebook. If you go to Facebook and look at the groups and type in rad tech or x-ray tech, you'll notice anywhere up to, I'd say, 12 forums that rad techs belong to, and they let it all out in those forums. They say what their problems are that they're having. They ask for help with problems they're having. They share case studies. They all have rules about HIPAA and making sure they're anonymous studies that they share. But you want to put your finger on the pulse of what the technologists are doing, you should visit those forums. So I posted last year when I was writing this article, I posted a poll and I said, what are some causes that have led you to burnout? And I can tell you from that poll, there was over 25, but I narrowed down to 13 of the most common, and that's what we're going to discuss today. So number one is inadequate personnel. Number two is uncontrolled traffic of patients. Number three is an unhealthy rad tech lifestyle. Number four is ambiguity within the job. Number five is a lack of proper training and or orientation. Number six is an unhealthy work environment. Number seven is personality traits. Number eight is inappropriate equipment. Number nine is ineffective leadership. Number 10 is trauma cases without debriefing. Number 11 is ergonomics. Number 12 is profitability, driving the workflow. And 13 is the expanded duties. And so let's get into those and explain them just a little bit. So number one, inadequate personnel or understaffed. In the radiology world, there's a term we frequently use called skeleton crew. Typically, that means that we're staffed with the bare minimum number of technologists necessary to cover a low volume shift. Usually, it's adequate coverage unless the shift volume picks up. I mean, we never overstaff right from the get-go, right? We always start with the minimum and then flex up, hopefully. It's best utilized on holidays and periods of predicted slow exam volumes. However, problems arise for staff when the administration sees that the team can function at this reduced level of staffing. This is one of the primary factors that can trigger a rad tech to burn out, or really a nurse or a physician or anybody else. It arises due to insufficient numbers of staff in the department on a regular basis. From time to time, it's understandable, but on a regular basis, it starts to wear on you. So, we know that in healthcare, there's this ebb and flow of patient volumes, and it's somewhat predictable if you have enough data, enough years to look at, and your location. If you're in a snowy area, you can predict that winter will bring more exams because people are out skiing and falling down, versus Phoenix that may have higher volumes in the summer because that's when most people are out and active, or you could argue in the winter there because that's when all the snowbirds are there. Regardless, when this occurs, the technologists who are present on these skeleton shifts have to labor more intensely and take on more workload than usually what they can handle safely. So it burns out the staff and compromises patient safety. The main problem, besides burning them out, is the quality of the patient care. The quality begins to decrease once the tech no longer has an adequate amount of time to properly see to the full needs of the patient. Understaffed departments start to focus on the bare minimum to get the exam done at the detriment of patient satisfaction. For example, instead of waiting for additional staff to position or maybe hold a patient in the right position, a tech may use sandbags or other tools to position the patient, and this is less comfortable for the patient, but it gets the job done. Or the tech compromises the image quality a little by exposing a patient who can't hold still on their own, and the image comes out a little blurry. So without adequate staffing, the most challenging patients might be imaged suboptimally, and the tech has few choices in these scenarios. And I'll be entering quips from actual rad techs that have commented to me in these Facebook forums. And for example, when talking about inadequate personnel, I have a tech named Ali who reported giving an injection to the wrong patient. She shouldn't have been doing this in the first place. She was asked to help out by an athletic trainer who was too busy charting. And Ali was trying to be a team player by helping out, but it was not her normal routine to give this level of care. And needless to say, the wasted injection cost the company over $500, and it wasn't supposed to be done, right? And then Tony reported sticking herself with a dirty needle while working in an exhausted state due to her excessive hours of coverage due to short staffing. So the solutions to these can be simply for the technologists to share concerns to management or at a staff meeting. And they need to take time with each patient to perform proper patient care. So as administrators, that's what we need to allow to happen. We need to allow the technologists to perform proper patient care and not be trying to squeeze every extra exam out of the day that we can at the detriment of the staff and the patients. Number two is unusually high patient volumes. So there's no denying the fact that more patients are seeking healthcare and that a huge influx is expected in the next 10 years from the retiring baby boomer generation. This is good news in terms of making a profit from providing healthcare. But staffing levels, however, also need to increase to meet the demand. Too often, staff expansion is reactive instead of proactive. So the amount of work a radiographer can do in one shift varies depending on the mix of patients they see in a day. Hospital radiographers, for example, spend more time per patient due to fluoroscopic exams and procedures than, say, an outpatient orthoimaging clinic. The first may max out with 12 to 15 patients per 8-hour shift, while an experienced ortho tech can crank out 40 patients a day with minimal disruption. This is where an experienced imaging leader is worth their weight in gold. You have to weigh the different environments against benchmarks and past performance in order to establish the proper balance of staff to patient ratios. And I have a comment here, and you can see my image there, what it's like when they start to catch the fish and all of a sudden they get overwhelmed. I picture that as a couple of techs trying to handle volumes when they get overwhelmed. I have a comment from a rad tech named Tao. Tao says, where he works, they are understaffed and overworked. They are also shortening the scheduled exams to make more money. CT with contrast exams are now being scheduled every 20 minutes instead of every 30 minutes. And Margaret says her site double books MRI exams. If the patient is still waiting on a pre-authorization, the slot is double booked. Then when the patient arrives with authorization, you now have an extra patient in an already full schedule. Tech stress goes up due to pressure to get patients done. Schedules become behind, and every patient that comes in after that is annoyed because they were taken late. So the problem that creates is mistakes are made because the techs are trying to go too fast. There's increased wait time, there's unhappy staff, and there's unsatisfying patient care. So some of the solutions include using established standards to schedule workloads, and you can go research Health Trust Plus as a tool. The advisory board also has metrics and tools you can see. You can also watch physicians' vacations and schedule appropriately. Many times we'll see an ortho clinic maybe has 5 docs in it, and 3 of them will take spring break, or 4 of them will take spring break. And so right before spring break, they order a whole bunch of exams and then go on vacation. Well, if you have access to their schedules and you know that, you can plan the staffing levels accordingly for that. And I'd never encourage double booking. And another one is to remove non-essential duties. I had an ortho clinic that was overwhelmed, and when I investigated what they were doing, one of the things, probably 20% of their day was spent burning discs for patients, which I don't feel should have even been their job to begin with. That's not a rad tech essential duty. That's something that any office staff member can do. So evaluate and remove non-essential duties to help out in these high volume locations. Number 3 is the unhealthy rad tech lifestyle. So, you can only have one slice of pizza unless it's that big. So rad techs who are trapped deep in the intricacies of their work rarely have time for socializing. They don't have time to focus on personal development and end up neglecting their relationships, often without realizing it. But psychologists put an emphasis on the importance of maintaining relationships and social life, along with practicing self-care to be in a balanced mental and emotional state. And so the problems it can cause of these unhealthy lifestyles, obviously, are unhealthy techs, which lead to higher injury rates and health issues, and unhappy techs tend to lead to unhappy patients. So, gorging on junk food and working late nights are not the ideal lifestyle for anybody. This is in combination with a lack of exercise because you're sitting at the scanner all night, and can all become the perfect concoction for the ultimate technologist burnout. Work-life balance has become a commonplace phrase in the workplace today because corporate America is becoming more aware that if employees aren't happy, they aren't compelled to give good customer service. So some of the suggestive tips are to allow the employees to use their PTO to recharge their batteries. Please don't make the techs burn their PTO to save the hospital money. Also, you can offer better food options in your department or in the cafeteria. Reward positive outcomes with gift cards to healthy options like local gyms or local activities around town or healthy food, etc. Also consider encouraging employees to bring their own meals, to learn how to meal prep and make their meals for the week. It could be nutritious and help them lose weight, and you don't have to eat whatever's available in the cafeteria or whatever they have at the fast food restaurant next door. Number 4 is unhealthy lifestyles. Is that right? No, I got to change that. Number 4 should be ambiguity within the job. Sorry about that. Radiology departments are often known for ambiguity in their roles. Not having a clear job responsibility can be just as bad as having too much of a workload. Confusion about the roles and not knowing how to conduct yourself within a job is also known to be a potent ingredient for burnout. Who's in charge? Who's in charge when the leader steps out? What about the swing shift after the day shift leader's gone home? Does the night shift have a designated leader? Who covers the outpatient clinic after 6 o'clock? So the problems it creates is just a lack of control within the job boundaries. And then if they think they're doing the right thing, they feel like there's a lack of recognition for what they're doing, but maybe they're doing stuff that you didn't expect them to be doing because there was ambiguity in the job role. So some of the suggested tips are, as Captain Obvious in my meme there states, just set clear expectations, not vagueness. Maybe you can do the old see one, do one, teach one, get in there and show them how it's done, and then have them do it. And then they can start training other people. Rotate the lead tech position. Let each member of the team see what it's like to be in those shoes. And encourage the techs to learn more about their field. We all have dozens of magazines laying around, and there's always Amp Mini and the AHRA and the ASRT and ART with things on their website. I can tell by my stopwatch I'm going way too slow. So I'll try and speed it up a little bit here. So burnout number 5 is lack of proper training. Employee training is kind of a big deal. Quite interesting. Lack of proper and sufficient training can also be a significant stressor. How can you expect to excel at your job if you don't get fully trained? Then comes the annual evaluation that grades the level of how well you're doing your job. Being downgraded on an evaluation based on skill sets you were never oriented on can be a big push towards burnout. So, there's a lot of different types of examinations done in a standard imaging department. You've got your general x-ray, you've got your ortho spine stuff, C-arm stuff, O-arm stuff, fluoroscopy, speech and swallow, interventional trauma stuff. While most radiography schools attempt to teach all of this to the students, there's no guarantee that every student sees everything during their clinical rotation. The basic competencies listed for graduation from a credentialed radiography program are helpful, but if you passed competency in the OR on your first rotation, then saw no surgeries on your second rotation, it can easily be a year or two since your last OR case. So when a radiographer is asked to perform fluoroscopy without having been trained in it, it can be stressful for both the technologist and the radiologist, as well as the patient. So a senior person in the department might have assumed that because the procedure is standard imaging exam, a radiographer has been trained on it in school and is capable of performing it on their own. But as Ronald Reagan once said, quote, trust but verify, end quote. Trust that your checks know their job, but verify for certainty. So what can a lack of proper training and orientation cause? Well, it gives you a lack of confidence, poor diagnostic quality images. It can put the patient safety at risk and the employee safety at risk. So what are some of the solutions? One of them is using an established onboarding protocol. In my facility, we have 1 full week training in the OR, and then 1 full week training in fluoroscopic exams, 1 full week training on how the ER functions with traumas and such, and 1 full week on standard exams that are done within the general x-ray department. So each tech that's onboarded gets a full month of orientation throughout the department before they're really kind of turned loose to run on their own. There's also a competency list. Upon hiring, new hires should be scheduled to review this list with a member of the imaging team. A successful model I've seen employs an imaging educator employee who reviews these documents with each employee. The list contains all procedures that any employee could be asked to do, including outlying clinics and locations outside of the main imaging department. If there's something on the list that the new hire is uncomfortable or unfamiliar with, it's the educator or mentor's job to line out some training in that area for the new hire. There's also encouraging ghost training during low volumes or ghost imaging, or imaging the dummies that are in the department, or I forget what we called it in school. I think it was ghost image, phantom images. That's what it was called. Sorry. Number 6, unhealthy work environment. Healthcare institutions obviously are where sick people seek treatment. This fact alone also makes it a hotspot of communicable diseases where radiographers are exposed daily. This can compromise their health in a significant way. Besides the nosocomial infections from daily work, there are repetitive motion injuries to watch for as well. A major cause of non-lethal injuries in radiographers, as well as other healthcare providers, is musculoskeletal disorders, or MSDs. These are injuries due to sprains and strains. Manipulating patients into the correct position can result in overexerted muscle and micro injuries. Over time, this can result in conditions such as muscular microtrauma, inflammation, and scar tissue, etc. An increasing number of patients who are obese add to the physical stress of the rad tech job. And I've got an input here from a tech named John. Notes that he is constantly lifting and moving patients that are getting bigger, and where he works, they're not giving proper equipment like Hoyer lifts. So the problem this creates is not only do you have the traditional nosocomial infections, because rad tech hasn't shot a chest x-ray in the ER only to find out the next day that that patient had TB. We're also at high risk for needle sticks. We're also in a high level of stress and anxiety in our job. So what are some of the solutions? Timeouts and audible breaks. We should all have those by now built into our protocols, where during procedures we call a timeout, we make sure we're covering everything properly, read off our lists, and then resume. You can also take audible breaks if you just need to slow down and recount something. You can encourage your techs to slow down and follow proper protocol, and you can properly stock all the necessary PPE. Now, when I wrote this a year ago, there was no COVID, and now we clearly have shortages of PPE across the country, but it's still necessary through whatever means possible that you try to remain properly stocked in your PPE. So if you don't cover the techs and they get injured, now you're down a tech, which is even more troublesome and problematic to the rest of the team. Also teach your techs about situational awareness and being aware of what's going on around them. Number 7, personality traits. We've got our type A personality at its finest right there from the movie 300. We've all got these kinds of techs. These individuals who have type A personality are also more vulnerable to rad tech. They are more vulnerable to rad tech burnout than others, because these individuals are predispositioned to seek perfectionism and have an inherent need to be in control. High achieving individuals and those who do not work well in a group are also more prone to stress and ultimately suffer burnout. So the problems it causes, if you're a high achiever and work with a tech of opposite tendencies, you may need to figure out a compromise. You are the type who grabs the next exam that needs to be done without deciphering whether or not it will be difficult, but your partner tends to let everyone else go first and be a bit picky about which exam they want to do. So as an administrator, it's your job to watch out for these things and pay attention to tech volumes, run your reports to see how many exams each tech is doing, and pay notice to the ones that are at the bottom of the pile. One solution is to encourage compromise, tell the techs to take alternate exams, discuss the appropriate workflow in the department, and be keen to offer additional training to the underperformers, and coach them and mentor them, maybe set them up with a mentor that can teach them how to do the tougher exams a little more efficiently. Excuse me. Burnout number 8 is inappropriate equipment. Inappropriate equipment, of course, can include outdated equipment that barely functions or not having the right equipment at all. Performing radiographic equipment and giving doses of radiation to patients doesn't make sense if you aren't using the proper equipment. Try doing lumbar spine x-rays with a portable machine, for an example. Can it be done? Yes. Should it be done if you want optimal images? Absolutely not. A good tech will not stay working in a facility that asks them to take care of patients with bad equipment. The problems it can cause, having equipment that constantly breaks down, it's not only annoying, but makes for unhappy patients. An end-of-life nuclear medicine camera that constantly breaks down is troublesome on many levels. It's unfortunate for patients who either have to come back another day to complete the exam they started or reschedule for a later date altogether. There's also the decreased productivity reports that call out how the department is falling behind on numbers. And if management's really penny pinching, a down machine means technologists don't get to work their shifts. If there's no machine to do exams, there's no need to have the techs on the schedule. So the problem it creates is faulty equipment breaks down, leading to unhappy patients and employees. And of course, down machines tend to make us want to send the techs home, which doesn't help them feed their families. So the solution, which is easier said than done, I realize, is to replace outdated equipment promptly and try to plan ahead for the replacements. I typically start talking about replacement at 7 years. At 9 years, it's actively on my capital requests, and by 10 years, I'm begging. I've had MRI scanners go 20 years, but the quality is outdated. So try to plan ahead for your replacements. And I know it's tough with the CFOs out there. Just do your best. And check your service plans with your vendors or your in-house biomed guys. Make sure that there's coverage on everything. The image I have there is just of a a hospital that took an old 16 slice, or it may even be less than that, and turned it into a playground for the kids. Number 9, ineffective leadership. That's no such thing out there, right? So what would you say you do here if you've seen Office Space? There was a popular quote on LinkedIn at the time I wrote the article, and it was that people don't quit their jobs, they quit their bosses. Well, we've all had bad bosses. We all know what it's like to work for them. This is one area where you really don't have many options aside from the occasional company survey that goes out to all the employees. The problem it creates is techs start to feel frustrated because they feel like management doesn't have their back, and this starts to corrupt department culture. And I don't know if you've had to try to fix culture before, but I have, and it's hard, and it takes years to turn a culture around. So if you can stay ahead of that by listening to your staff and sitting out some survey monkeys, which I have under the solutions. So let's just talk solutions. First of all, you can always research what other facilities are doing about certain problems. Before you make a move to switch to the worst EHR on the planet, maybe you should see what all the other hospitals in your area are using. I worked at a facility to the north of me who switched to an EHR that nobody else in the state uses. And the other facilities that were larger that we relied on, they all used Epic. And this one facility decided it was a smart idea to go with something else. They lost all their IT support from the larger hospitals. It just was a bad idea. So always research what your peers and other facilities are doing and how they're handling certain issues. You can also consult your peers on the AHRA forums. I don't know if you've been there, but daily there are new questions being asked and multiple answers being given on the AHRAonline.org forums. I highly recommend you check those out. And then, of course, take advantage of SurveyMonkey to get your finger on the pulse of your staff. Anonymize it so they feel comfortable saying what they need to say, and don't let it hurt your feelings. You got to develop some tough skin to deal with culture problems. Number 10, I'm going to take just a quick drink here. Number 10 at 32 minutes. Trauma case without debriefing. This is something that's not talked about in rad tech school. Rad techs are, of course, frontline on the trauma events. They're in the emergency room when multiple vehicle accidents come in or gunshot wounds from violence. There's a lot of things that a rad tech will see that they wish they didn't see. Type A people thrive on the adrenaline rush of traumatic energy, but everyone deals with trauma in different ways. Most difficult to mentally process are traumas involving children and the elderly. The problems it causes is rad techs see horrific traumas and they can internalize them. It's common. And decompression is not taught in rad tech schools, at least not that I'm aware of. This can begin to affect mental health, the workplace, family relationships, and overall well-being. And over time, a buildup of witnessing the ugly side of life can be enough to cause burnout. Some of these suggested solutions, and again, there's more on the blog article, but to keep it brief here, you should always be offering counseling services to staff. If you have a newsletter, put it on the back page. If you have a weekly email that you send out, just put a gentle reminder that there's always counseling services available. And again, encourage staff to use their PTO for R&R if that's what it's there for. That's what they earn it for. It's not there to be burned at the will of a CEO because the hospital wants to save some money. You can also form your own debriefing group to talk things out and try to invite a certified counselor if your facility has one. Number 11, good old ergonomics. And I've got Homer there all crouched over with everything hurting. Working in a radiology department means more than just acquiring diagnostic images, as we all know. It means getting patients in the right position so that those diagnostic images can be acquired. So this requires helping patients in and out of wheelchairs, helping them get up on exam tables and back off the exam tables. In a hospital setting, it can mean physically pulling a patient from the gurney to the scan table and back. I popped a hamstring doing that once. That wasn't good. These are just some of the ergonomics behind the physical activity of a rad tech's day-to-day job. And so if you're not careful, proper lifting techniques and stretching exercises should be a standard part of the curriculum in any radiography program worth attending. We're all trained not to bend at the waist and how pushing is better than pulling, but there are scores of times when things happen quickly and instinct guides us before best practice can kick in. Like when a patient is standing at the wall bucky about to get a chest x-ray and starts to fall over, our natural instinct is to catch them so they don't hit their head, but then that can lead to a traumatic back injury on our part. So the same goes for moving a patient on and off the x-ray table by yourself because there's nobody else around. So the problem this causes is a shortened work lifespan. It can also cause the tech irritability and pain and slower exam completion. So some of the basic solutions are encouraging stretching pre-shift and during shift, place ergonomic exercise posters in every modality. Those are available online. Spend a few dollars on ergo floor mats and other tools, ergonomic chairs, and anything you can find to help with the ergonomics of the department. Send staff to proper lifting technique classes or assign online videos annually. Again, did we have it in school? Yes. How long ago was that? Decades. So you should always be re-educating on proper lifting techniques in whatever methodology your system has. Number 12, profitability driving the workflow. So departments that allow profitability instead of patient care to drive workflow means they care less about how stressed the staff becomes and more about how many patients they can schedule in a day. There are many limiting factors that play on workflow: acuity of patients, condition of equipment, the skill of technologists, and the layout of the clinic, to name a few. I've seen plenty of clinics where patient volumes are unreasonably high to the point where technologists can barely keep up and patient care is questionable. This is a scenario where the probability of tech turnover is high because the expectations are just unreasonable and unhealthy. So the problems it can cause is fast-paced imaging clinics can be highly profitable with the right technologists controlling the traffic, but when the scheduling model is taken from the techs and worked from an administrative perspective without input from the technologist, you can get a recipe for bad patient care and tech injury. These hyper-scheduled clinics typically pay better than their hospital counterparts, but that does not make up for the risk of injury to the technologist or the patient. I've seen busy ortho clinics where techs were doing 50 patients a day each. That's 2 techs doing 100 patients. And they were asked to transport patients to and from the exam, and they were asked to burn the disc to packs for comparison studies. And I alluded to this one earlier. So you take some of those away and it becomes much more manageable. So what does it create? Profitability over patient care creates disaster. The solution, some simple solutions: get your techs input on the schedule. Ask them how many they think they can get done a day. Make it a contest. Challenge them to set a new record. Reward a busy day. There's verbal praise, gift cards, lunches. Set realistic volume goals. And just realize that happy techs create happy customers. And then finally, number 3, the jack of all trades, multitasking man, can poorly complete any task within reach. So the expanded work duties, oftentimes we as technologists look to expand our skills. And maybe we're in X-ray and we learn how to do CT, or maybe we're in CT and we learn how to do MRI, or maybe we're in X-ray and we learn how to do DEXA and we learn how to do mammo. Sometimes the problem with that is that you start doing it on a regular basis and then you're expected to do it. And before you know it, you're being asked to do so much that you can't do any one thing to the best of your ability. I have input here from a tech named Ashley, who is a licensed radiographer and who also has to do clinical assistant duties. apply durable medical equipment to patients like knee braces, fracture boots, crutches, etc. And she x-rays 50 to 80 patients a day in her busy ortho clinic. She ended her statement with lunch question mark, what's that question mark? Do you think that tech's going to hang around? Now, you know she's worth her weight in gold if she can do all that, but do you really want to burn her out for the sake of making a few extra bucks? Or do you want to hire an assistant at 12 bucks an hour to help her out? I mean, it just makes sense. So what can you do? Be mindful of what a rad tech is trained to do in school. Be hesitant to ask them to step outside of their boundaries, like techs doing billing, techs assigning CPT codes. We didn't go to school for that. The implications of screwing up a billing code is that you're not going to get reimbursed at all. Do you really want to take that risk instead of sending your AR out to an appropriate billing company? Be grateful for multimodality techs. I have a feeling that that's a dying breed. The trend I'm seeing is that people are saying, you know what, I'll just learn one modality and I'll be happy with that. So as we continue to try to train multimodality techs to be more efficient, be grateful for the ones you have and consider offering additional compensation for the additional duties that you give to them. So I've listed some signs of burnout here, and the signs of burnout, just 5 of them. There's, if you see exhaustion in the text, health issues, they're constantly calling out because they're sick. If there's a lack of motivation at work, if they're having problems focusing on their studies, or if they have a negative attitude. Sometimes a negative attitude is because somebody's just sick of their job and the way they're treated. So exhaustion can be emotional, physical, or mental, and it is typically the first sign of burnout. Apart from not having the physical energy to get your work done or complete a task, if you feel like you've been totally spent and have nothing left to give, it's time to evaluate your options. Health issues, prolonged exposure to stress without resolving it can result in digestive problems, as well as other conditions like diabetes and cardiovascular complications. Other health problems that precede a burnout are high blood pressure and difficulty sleeping or staying asleep. And dependence on a substance, being depression and displaying negativity, are being depressed is what I should say, and displaying negativity are other issues that are common symptoms that herald a burnout. Lack of motivation. I mean, everybody has those days when they get up to go to work and it's a burden, it feels like. But if it's a daily struggle to have a burden just to get up, that's not a good sign, especially if you used to love what you do and now you don't. And you'll hear these kinds of conversations in your break rooms among techs or in the hallways, those water cooler discussions. I used to really like working here, but nowadays, those are the things you should key in on. With the problematic focusing, with so many physiological and psychological things happening, brains tend to get a little foggy, so you'll start to become forgetful, more forgetful than usual, and this can be dangerous if you're a tech at any capacity. Again, negative attitude is a clear sign of stress. What are some of the antidotes? Well-being comes first. Many people struggle with that concept, but it's not about being selfish. It's about taking care of you first so that you can take care of your patients and your family and everybody else. Number 2, an active social life. There's lots of studies out there that show being social is good for self-esteem and relieves depression. Physical exercise, same thing. Mental vacations, yoga. There's all kinds of things you can do to relax and take a mental break. Number 5, improve your sleep. Try to get at least 7 hours. I know that's crazy sounding, but I've been experimenting with it, and it actually, my years of getting 4 to 5 hours a night are over. I won't go back. I am more productive during the day if I get a full night's sleep than if I stay up till 2 in the morning working and then get back up at 6 in the morning to go to work. Number 6, try to find a senior peer or a mentor. Organizations are starting to have an increased awareness of combating stress in the workplace, and if you have a counselor or a senior person you can talk to, it could be a great help. So utilize a friend at work to be a sounding board. Be careful not to turn it into a negative rant fest. try to help your technologist find a mentor, or use the buddy system is sometimes what it's called. So in conclusion, if we take care of the employees, they will take care of the patients. So there's just some key take homes here. And I don't think I have, yeah, after that, I just listed my references. So know your priorities. Work is essential, but so is work-life balance. And you need to understand that you have to take care of the employees. Take time to relax. Make sure that there's interdepartmental games. Maybe have a bowling league between the radiology department and the emergency room or the ICU or whatever. Encourage team volleyball. Encourage social activities together. Game night, whatever it is that takes their mind off work and builds team spirit outside of work. Encourage the use of PTO for vacations. If I have techs that have to fill out paperwork that keeps them from losing PTO because they're maxed out. And then the next time they get another 4-hour chunk, they would lose it unless they filled out this special paperwork. You shouldn't have anybody there that has so much PTO that they're losing accrual. And this particular nurse had been there a long time, and I just really struggled getting her to take time off. She always seemed to take it as I'm trying to get rid of her if I'm telling her to take time off. But I mean, logically, you're losing PTO. Use your PTO. That's what it's there for. See if there's any spiritual or emotional type groups at work. They have different programs that roll through the systems at different times that help you connect as a group. Just try to eat healthy. Try to avoid going to the cafeteria and grabbing the junk food and the soda pops. Encourage your staff to eat healthy snacks, maybe even put some healthy snacks in the break room for them to use instead of, because if they're short on time, they're going to go for what's closest. So if what's closest are the healthy snacks you brought in versus the junk food in the vending machine down in the ER, they're going to go for yours because it's closer and they can get back to their desk. So I'm telling you, these techs like their job and they like what they do, and they do it because they love it and they want to help their patients. But this burnout is occurring because we're losing focus of why we're there. We're making this trend towards MBAs running the hospitals who were never nurses, they were never doctors, they were never rad techs. They don't know anything about patient care. All they know about is the bottom dollar and how to squeeze every nickel out of every patient. So take the time to take care of your technologists, and they will in turn take care of the department. I hope this has been an informational topic for you. It is still ongoing. We're seeing more stress in the community with COVID. The techs are more stressed because there's not enough PPE going around. There's uncertainty on what PPE to use. It changes seemingly daily from the CDC. And there's most definitely an increased sense of anxiety among the rad tech community. So I encourage you to visit my blog, where I have over 90 articles addressing things that happen to rad techs or answers questions that rad techs have. I have a YouTube channel as well, same name, where I've got over 30 videos talking about cross-training. And I just did one today where a tech went from X-ray to MRI, and she's not happy there. And she wants to know if it's reasonable to ask to get moved back to the X-ray department. Of course, as an administrator, it's frustrating because you just spend all that time and money cross-training them. But if you leave a tech somewhere where they're not happy, you're going to burn them out, and then you've lost them altogether. So I thank you for your time, and thank you for watching my presentation. I hope it was not too mundane. I feel like I'm speaking kind of monotone, but I'm also just staring at a camera. So thanks for coming by. And at this point, it's about 50 minutes. So we'll open the floor to the questions and answers. Q&A. Thanks, guys.